it, in essence.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Here's my thoughts. Here, Jordan. Here are my thoughts. Number one, how do you have a person run for election under the platform that they're going to prosecute an individual? First of all, how does that happen? How does that happen in the United States? Prosecutors don't prosecute. Grand juries indict, and there's a procedure that's followed. Prosecutors don't have the ability to do that. You would think, you would hope, but in reality, I guess they do. And that was the platform that the district attorney ran under, and that's how this case comes to light again. The fact that, and let me also just say, let me point out to you that Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, is not Los Angeles County, where O.J. and Michael Jackson got their acquittals. This is Montgomery County. It's a different jury pool there, and they're going to look at Mr. Bill Cosby a lot differently than a L.A. jury would look at Bill Cosby. All right, having said that, this former prosecutor, this former district attorney, made this deal, and the deal was to preclude him from criminal prosecution, thereby paving the way for allowing him to testify in a civil case. While there's a threat of criminal prosecution, there's no way he would testify because he would jeopardize his Fifth Amendment privilege. He would go to a deposition, and he would assert that privilege. He would say, because of the potential of a criminal prosecution against me, under the Fifth Amendment, I refuse to answer any questions. And that's what would have happened. So the DA made this deal with him. The deal is memorialized in an email. The deal is not court-ordered. They never got a judge to order it. And should they have? Maybe they should have gotten a judge to order it. That could be a problem, but they didn't. Clearly, in reliance upon this deal and the representations by the district attorney, Bill Cosby then agreed voluntarily to take the deposition and voluntarily answer any and all questions truthfully. He answered those questions to the best of his ability. He disclosed certain information which, without this deposition and without the information he disclosed, there is no way they could have possibly convicted him, even in Montgomery County. They need this deposition. They want this deposition. It's like Jack Nicholson. You need me on that wall. You want me on that wall. They need this deposition in order to convict him. Without the deposition, I don't care what Gloria Allwrong says, that they're going to bring in everybody under the sun who's going to say that he did the same sort of means and motive and he drugged them. Without this deposition, it's not happening. And even with the deposition, it comes down to an issue of consent. Consent is the issue. That's always been the issue in all these cases. But without the deposition, they have no prosecution against him. And I believe when they have this hearing with the judge, if the judge is playing with a full deck, the judge is going to realize that based on an express warranty and representation by the then Honorable District Attorney, Bill Cosby, in good faith reliance upon those representations, waived his Fifth Amendment privilege and testified. Based on that, I believe in the end this judge will preclude this deposition from coming into evidence in the criminal case.
Then there would be no case without that deposition, basically, right?
Well, they can still proceed with the case, but the likelihood of any success on it is substantially impaired to the tune of maybe 90%. The case is impaired. And it's so bad that you heard Smirkanish say that the district attorney says if you bring this case without the deposition, you risk being sued, not only the state being sued by Bill Cosby, but by the current district attorney being personally sued by Bill Cosby. And that is a potential. That could happen. If you bring a frivolous prosecution, if you bring a prosecution that you can't possibly win, you are subject to potential litigation against you and ramification against you, both ethically and in litigation. and that's potentially what could happen. That's how important this deposition is.
Wow. We'll have to see what happens on February 2nd. So it will be a interesting day in the Pennsylvania area for one Mr. Bill Cosby. What is your take, though, of Gloria Allred basically sticking up for every, woman that says something happened to her with Mr. Cosby?
Look, we've talked about Bill Cosby before in other shows with you, and look, if one or two people complain is one thing. There's 50 people complaining about him, and they're complaining about events and facts and circumstances that took place 30 and 40 years ago, and I don't know how they remember in detail everything that took place then. I don't know how someone remembers going to the Playboy Mansion with him, getting hammered with him, having sex with him, and then going back the following week and 2 weeks and 3 weeks with him and then say it was non-consensual. Some of the stories are so preposterous that I don't know, and I don't know. And back then, Quaaludes was something that it was like the drug of choice, and people wanted to get Quaaludes, and they wanted notoriety. And Bill Cosby was a big star, and these people, these people may have compromised their positions and their lives just to be with him under maybe a promise by him that he's going to introduce them to producers or directors or get them in Hollywood, and who knows what game he was playing then. But it comes down to consent, and it comes down to non-consent. And if these women back then thought that he raped them or he took advantage of them or he drugged them and then had sex with them against their will, they had every right to go prosecute him with any of the evidence they had. And if they didn't do that, there's a statute of limitations. There's a reason for that, to preserve evidence. You can't wait 30 years and then come bring a case, try to allege a case like this that you were raped 30 years ago, but you didn't do anything about it 30 years ago. There's a reason for that. And look, if he drugged these people and raped them, that's wrong, and I don't stand up for that, and that's horrible if he did that. But for these women to gang up now like they are and make these allegations against him, which no matter what he does, his life is ruined, his reputation is ruined, he's lost all of his honorary degrees from all the universities, including Temple University, which is his favorite. He's basically a pariah out there, and he's paid the price. Now, whether he's guilty or not, he's paid the price. And for Gloria Allred, when you were in school, remember, and the teacher got up there and was writing on the chalkboard, and all of a sudden that chalk just scratched along the board, and you got chills in you. That's when she opens her mouth. That's what happens to me. That's how I feel. So while a lot of women advocates think she's, the second coming and she's the most incredible woman and attorney out there, I think basically that she's a media hound, and any chance she gets to get her face on TV, she goes for. And so when she's involved in a case, it loses credibility to me from the outset. And she may have brought some great credible cases in her history. I don't know. But whenever I see her in a case now, I just lose all interest in it, and I think it's just a media circus when she's involved. So, you asked me what I thought of her involvement in it. That's what I think of her involvement in it. I'm not saying that the women that she purports to represent weren't harmed by him. I don't know if they were or they weren't, but I know they had every opportunity 25 years ago to do something about it, and they should have done it then. And the fact that they didn't do it then doesn't give them the right now to gang up on this guy and ruin everything he's ever done in his life with allegations that can't be proved. That's all I'm saying.
There was I don't know if you got the chance on CNN on the 10 p.m. East Coast show with Don Lemon, and Mesereau and Gloria Allred were going back and forth at each other. Did you get a chance to hear that?
I did not hear that, and I wish I got to see Tom, because I know he wouldn't put up with any of her crap. I know he would put it in her face.
Let me play you a portion of that, and I'm going to get your take.
Wait, let me get my popcorn out. Wait, let me get the popcorn out for this one. Okay.
Okay, here we go.
All right. So, Gloria, what do the survivors that you represent say about this? Do they believe more people were involved? Do any of them remember other people being involved or present?
Well, if, as and when any of them become witnesses, and if they are asked that question under oath, then they can answer that question under oath. Right now, I would rather not reveal what I know as a result of attorney-client privilege. But I would like to respond to what Tom said and his suggestion that somehow that Andrea did this for money. If in fact she did accept a financial settlement as a result of a civil lawsuit, which, by the way, is quite common. I have many cases that we settle. There's a financial settlement. There is a confidentiality clause. And sometimes there's a criminal case as well. Nothing wrong with that. Victims have options. They have both options. They can exercise one or the other or both if a DA will agree to prosecute, sometimes not, and then they proceed with a civil lawsuit. They have every right to do so. They shouldn't be attacked for seeking compensation for their therapy, for their medical bills, for their pain and suffering. They are empowered if they do that, and they have every right to do that. And I resent any suggestion by any defense attorney, and many, many defense attorneys make the suggestion, that somehow they only did it for money. Because most victims I know would rather not have been victimized and would rather not have to file a civil suit and hope that that would never have happened.
How do you respond to that, Tom?
Well, first of all, many celebrities are victims of false accusations, and they'll pay money to end the ordeal and spare their family having to go through all this. Michael Jackson freely admitted that he paid almost $20 million to spare his family, an O.J. Simpson-type situation. He went to trial, and he was exonerated of every allegation, 10 felonies and 4 misdemeanors. He was completely cleared. And I'd like to know who Ms. Allred's clients were 40 years ago. What were their morals? What was their behavior like? Did they go to parties where drugs were handed out? Did they bring drugs to those parties? Why did they approach Mr. Cosby? What did they want to get out of the relationship? I'd like to know who they really were. They need to be thoroughly investigated. Their backgrounds need to be thoroughly checked, and they have to be aggressively questioned to find out exactly what happened and what didn't happen. This is 40 years later, and suddenly they're all coming out making these accusations. Something seems wrong to me.
Well, it doesn't seem wrong to me at all.
Tom, there are, about 50 accusers now? Surely they all can't be looking for money.
Well, they're not. Most of them are not going to be able to sue. It's too late. So what are they looking for? Who are they? What are their value systems? What were they like 40 years ago? What do they intend to get from their relationship or their involvement with Mr. Cosby? How did they behave? What did they agree to? Remember, the 60s and 70s, drugs were being handed out at parties, clubs, left and right. People of both sexes were bringing Quaaludes and all sorts of things and using them freely. It was a different society then. I'm not involved in this case. I don't know the facts of what really happened, but I'm very skeptical of this many women suddenly jumping on the bandwagon 40 years later when times have changed, long after they could have made claims to the police or whatever. Something seems wrong to me.
Gloria, have any of your clients been contacted?
Well, I don't think there's something wrong at all.
Have any of your clients been contacted to testify, and will they if asked?
I'm not at liberty to reveal whether there's been any contact with law enforcement. I will say this, that my clients have clearly indicated, many of them to me, that they are willing to testify if, as, and when their testimony is sought, if that testimony is considered to be relevant or admissible in the criminal case. You can see what Tom is doing, which is what most defense attorneys would do, which is try to put the victim on trial, try to blame the victim, try to make suggestions about the victim. And we understand that's how the game is played, especially when they're up against a celebrity who has money, who has power, who has fame, who is known as thought of as a respected father figure. This is why some of them didn't come out some years ago, because they were afraid that they would be attacked. But now, it's a different time. They now have courage. By the way, some of them did tell their friends and family years ago. Some of them did, in fact, tell co-workers. Some of them may have told therapists, and some of them may have told others. I recognize Tom doesn't know. He hasn't spoken to them. I have. I have spoken to not only all of my clients personally, but many more who have called me, who have not spoken out publicly, but who are also willing to testify if, as, and when their testimony is required. They just didn't want to speak out publicly.